Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today we have two brand new stories. In the first, we'll tell you about an awesome grandfather and his antics back in the 60s. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. My grandfather was a badass. So this was around the mid-60s in a small village, my hometown, here in Norway. My uncle, around 17 years old at the time, had basically crushed his knee in a work-related accident and had a cast up to his hip. Naturally, he was using crutches, but that didn't stop him from attending a local party taking place at a small community venue. When the party was over and the attendees were collecting their coats and stuff, someone started a fight. My uncle got accidentally pushed out the main entrance and down the stairs, with 3 of the guys landing on top of him. He was so pissed, he just started punching whomever he could get a hold of. 2 police officers showed up eventually, and remember, this was a massive drunken fight in the 60s. The police didn't want to interfere in something they had no control over, so they decided to arrest the easiest target, my uncle with a cast up to his hip, who had also lost his crutches in all the commotion. They laid him in iron and drove him home to my grandparents. He was so angry, he growled all the way home. When they arrived, my grandfather came out to see what all this was about. The officers took my uncle out of the car and stacked him on his feet against the wall. One of the officers walked up to my grandmother and handed her the crutches and the keys to the handcuffs. They told her to unlock him when they had left and return the handcuffs at the police station the following day. Now my grandfather was pissed. He started swearing at them, calling them horse jerks, common expression here in northern Norway, telling them to F off and other things not suitable even for the internet. They fined him about $10 and left. The next day, my grandfather went to the police station to return the handcuffs and pay his fine. The first thing he met entering the police station was the 2 officers from the night before. He walked straight past them and right into the chief's office. He slammed the handcuffs and $20 on the chief's desk. The chief was a little confused and said, "You were only fined $10. My grandfather replied, "Well, I'm not finished talking." And our last story. How I destroyed an entire gas station chain. At one point in my life, I found myself bored. I needed spending cash, but at the same time, like any typical college student, I needed a job that would work around my class hours. Enter C Corp, not the real name. C Corp was a locally owned chain of gas stations in the southeastern part of Georgia and parts of Florida. I forget the total number of stations, but it was under 50, if that matters. I applied and was given a simple clerking position where I would work weekends and 2 nights a week for a total of about 32 hours a week, on average. Sometimes more, sometimes less. I worked there for about a year when I was offered a position to help reopen a store, renovated after a fire, with a promotion to assistant manager. My hours were going to obviously change, but by the same token, I gained better pay and a new day shift, which would help things out. To be quite honest, I even debated taking some time off from school to concentrate on the job, as it was entirely possible I'd be promoted to manager of my own store before long. There were veiled hints and suggestions of that very thing happening in a few months, as it were. I never got that far. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. It didn't take long for me to start noticing some issues with the store and the company as a whole. Issues which I did my level best to correct. We were nearing hunting season, turkey and then deer, and in an effort to cater to this, the store started getting in several pallets of ammunition. So now we had to figure out how to display the various types of shotgun shells and rifle bullets while also doing our level best to ensure things didn't get in the way. It was around this time that I found myself speaking with the store manager, having been called on the carpet, as the saying goes, for refusing to sell ammunition to a customer. I explained to the manager that I'd attempted to check ID on the customer who refused to give it. So I told the manager that I knew full well this was illegal, as ID was required by state law, and furthermore, you had to be 18 to buy them. That started me on the path that would lead to my termination a few weeks later. I started noticing memos popping up in the office, all that dealt with the company's practices regarding ammunition. One even went so far as to say it was a terminable offense to refuse a sale of shotgun shells to a customer, regardless of age. That one actually vanished a few days after it went up, with me suspecting someone in the legal department realized the trouble they could get into with it. However, the flow of ammo didn't stop. A few weeks before my termination, things got worse. The state in question has the lottery, of which the lion's share is scratch-off tickets. You know the type. Buy a buck scratch-off and hope you win something. Now, the lottery states on the back of every single ticket that the retailer who sold it must pay up to $599 in winnings. Anything above that has to be claimed at the central lottery office in the state's capital. Retailers are warned that should they refuse to pay this, there are instructions on how to do this with a money order, then they can be fined by the Lottery Commission or worse. Imagine my surprise when I'm written up for following the Lottery Commission policy and paying out on a $300 win for a customer. I was told point blank that the company policy was not to pay out anything more than $100, regardless of what the Lottery Commission says. The final straw before my eventual termination, though honestly I quit, they still listed me as terminated, came when training another cashier. The very next day, the count came up short by exactly $100. I refused to sign the write-up, which meant the company would have to investigate it, or so I thought. Same day, the district manager called the store and made some veiled threats about calling the police over this, and left me with the note that if the count comes up $100 over today, he won't say anything. Oh, hell no, he didn't. I waited till the manager returned from her meeting, dropped all my keys on the counter, and told her directly, "I'm done." I walked out and didn't really look back. I was pissed. Pissed at the treatment I'd been given over my time working there, pissed at being called a thief, pissed at what I knew the company was doing to my little community, and pissed that as far as I could tell, they'd get away with it. That's when I hatched a plan of revenge. First and foremost, I needed to talk with a friend. One of my college buddies also worked for the county sheriff's office, so I plied him over with some good barbecue and a few beers, then asked him, hypothetically speaking, what would happen to a company if it was found out they were doing something illegal, like, selling ammunition when they shouldn't be, or something like that. He knew I'd recently left C Corp and the circumstances of why I left, so it didn't take long for him to just ask what was going on. So I spilled the beans, even including the reported theft I'd been accused of. He was on the edge of his seat, even going so far as to note that the district manager's actions itself were illegal, and told me to come meet with my friend's boss the next day to give a statement. So I did just that. I laid out everything, told about the memo about not refusing sales against state law, and then gave detailed information about the DM's call, the incident itself, and other things I had witnessed regarding illegal practices by the company, though not mentioned here. It took the better part of 4 hours to get everything told and typed out. By the way the detectives acted, I got the impression I had either given him one hell of a caseload or broken some case wide open. Fun. However, I wasn't really done yet. I still had one more call to make. That one would prove pretty simple and short and involved me calling the Lottery Commission and telling them about the company's policy, which went against the lottery agreement. I was assured they'd look into things and that my information would be kept secret. I just had to sit back and wait. The fallout. 2 or 3 weeks later, our local paper ran a story on the front page, talking about a multiple department sting that happened in our area. The sting was investigating illegal sales of weapons, alcohol, and ammunition to minors. In that raid, C Corp had been hit hard, with several of their stores being shut and several managers and district managers being arrested on various charges tied to this illegal activity. The company itself was facing severe, in the 7-figure range, fines from the state, and it was being called into question whether or not they had the proper licenses to sell ammunition and firearms in the first place. The only mention about what the DM had said to me came in the form of one of the investigating officers noting that the company had resorted to blackmail in an attempt to silence anyone who dared question the company policies or practices. The stores did remain open, but you could tell that the managers were seriously nervous about what the future held. Sales of ammunition and guns stopped completely and overnight, though. About a week after the raid by police, lottery tickets of all kinds simply vanished from the stores. Big signs out front simply read, "We do not sell lotto." The validation machines were gone, the scratch-off ticket areas lay empty, lottery was not in the building. I can only guess what happened in that case, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Lottery Commission sent people in with winning tickets only to have those people turned away. The fact that they lost their lottery sales would point to it being a serious issue at the very least. That or the Lottery Commission decided to distance themselves from the company, which was already under federal investigation. Yes, the ammunition and guns thing went federal. Ultimately, the company was a shell of its former self. About half of the gas stations ended up closing due to no longer being profitable, and what stations didn't close were just shells of their former selves. The company eventually declared bankruptcy after a final scandal brought them another round of state and federal fines. In that case, they were busted for price gouging after raising the gas price per gallon to about $6 a gallon in cities where they had no other competition. This happened just prior to a pending tropical storm. Today. It's been close to 15 years since this all went down. C Corp doesn't exist any longer. After declaring bankruptcy, most of the stores were sold off to a competitor who ended up closing all but 5 or 6 of the stores due to redundancies. Several of the corporate staff were given 2- and 3-year suspended sentences, while others ended up paying personal fines on top of what the company was facing. The company has now become something of a warning to others about what not to do when an employee voices a concern, and above and beyond that, why it's a good idea to follow the letter of the law exactly as it's written, regardless of if it hinders your bottom line or not. Some part of me thinks that the DM honestly thought it was the best option, and may have even been trying to help out an employee he liked. That was something that always bugs me, looking back. Every interaction I had with the guy was a good one, right up to him grooming me to be another store manager. So maybe he was trying to protect me. Then again, he could have just been the a-hole I assumed, and that was him showing his true colors. I guess we'll never know. He moved out of the area a few years later, and I sure as hell wasn't about to talk to him again. Not after everything that had happened. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.